Hey everybody, what's going on? Thank y'all for checking out this video. I really appreciate it. As you can tell by the title and the thumbnail for this video, it's a little bit different for my channel. Normally I'm all about, throwing at the bank, fishing wood, fishing grass, all that kind of stuff. But today's video, I'm gonna be going over some baits that you can try and you can use this time of the year to maybe catch those fish that get out suspended, or they get out in really deep water in the middle of the pockets and the creeks, or if your lake has standing timber. I've got a couple baits and techniques you can try to, get those fish, get some of those finicky fish, and some things you can do to get them to bite. So number one, the first thing that I like to start with is a spoon, some sort of spoon. And what I'm talking about, the way that these fish are gonna be set up, obviously this time of the year, you can catch fish off some points and some rock and stuff like that. But you can find a lot of fish, a lot of big schools of fish out in deeper water, anywhere from 25 foot to up to 55, 65 foot deep. But I'm mainly focusing on the 25 to 40 foot deep. And most of the time when you're fishing like this, you're not really fishing for giants. I mean, yes, you can come across some big fish doing this and some big schools, but mainly where I fish, you're catching spotted bass anywhere from, a pound to, maybe 2.5 pounds is the biggest. Nothing giant, just a bunch of fish get balled up in an area chasing shad. And what you're looking for, picture, you're on a lake, on a reservoir that has a winter drawdown. You can pick a long pocket that, might go pretty far back, get in there and just idle all the way back, looking at your 2D and your down scan, and just look for shad and then look for fish under the shad. And if you see streaks, like on the 2D sonar, if you see the fish streaking up and making little waves and all that kind of stuff on your screen, you can probably stop and fish, because that's a good area that's got some fish in it. But what I'm looking for is, those shad stacked up, the bass and the crappie are moving those shad around. That's what it is on my lake. I know lakes across the country are different, but what I'm looking for is, fish anywhere between 25 foot to 40 foot deep is where I'm trying to target them. And they can either be on the bottom, or they could be 20 foot deep, over 40 foot of water. It just depends on the situation. It's different each time. So you just got to get there and look for it, and like I said, idle the pockets, idle the creek arms, just out there on the main lake or in the main river. You just gotta do some looking. But generally, if you spend some time doing it, you can come across a good amount of fish that's got a big school, and you can usually get them to bite. So the first thing that I'm gonna drop down on them, and like I said, this video is, I'm talking about dropping straight down, like I'm vertically dropping and using the 2D sonar to catch the fish. So the first thing that I'm going to use is just the traditional Little George. I mean, it's just a little tail spinner bait. It's just, a lead head. You got a single hook, and then that little Colorado tail spinner in the back, and you're just dropping that thing down, and pick it up or jerk it or pop it and kill it. Just change your action, but it's basically just a jigging spoon. You're jigging it up and down, looking on your 2D, watching your bait go down, and seeing the fish come up to it and streak and do all kind of stuff. You're just working this jigging spoon. But this is something that I really like to throw to start off with. This, or a traditional, just a jigging spoon, whichever one is your preference. But this I like to start with because it's a little bit more flash, and I feel like if the fish are active, you can get a good read off the fish if they bite this or not. If they won't touch this, then you may switch over to a traditional jigging spoon that doesn't have all that flash. But like I said, I'm just throwing that the Little George. That's a 1/2 ounce one in silver. I know they make a couple different colors now, but this is the one that's been around for the longest time. Just dropping that down, and hold it or twitch it, or pull your rod up 3 or 4 foot and let it fall back down. You're trying to get a reaction bite from those fish, get it down there in the strike zone, in the water column where they are, and that's a really great bait to do that with. And I'm actually using a 7'1" medium heavy rod, and I have 12-pound fluorocarbon, 7-to-1 gear ratio reel. That way I can get it down there and get it back up pretty quick. And if you do end up hooking a big fish in deep water, you can use a spinning rod, but I feel like if you're jigging it like up and down, you need that casting rod to be able to set that hook and drive that hook in. And another bait that you can use that is great for doing the same technique, but it's almost like instead of pulling it up and down, you can just shake the rod, almost like a drop shot or a shaky head, and that is the Damiki rig. If you're not familiar with it, it is a white jig head, and then you put a little fluke style or a swim bait trailer on the back. So hopefully y'all can see that. Like I said, it's just a swim bait head, and this one is actually designed for it. It's supposed to sit vertically in the water, and you just drop this thing down. You know, picture it dropping down if you can see that, and then once you get it to your preferred depth, you kill it or quit dropping it, and you hold your line tight, and that bait's going to be sitting down there just like this, pretty flat, and you can just, you know, pop your rod and move it back and forth, and those fish, the fluke tail makes a lot of action when you're not even really moving it. So that's a great bait to just drop down there and keep it in front of their face. You're pretty much fishing for suspended fish when you're doing this. Obviously you can drop it on the bottom, but this is great for suspended fish. It doesn't have a super fast fall, so one can get it on the way down, or you can get it down there to that 25, 30 foot range and shake it and pop it and get one to come over there and grab it. But like I was saying, you know, this is called a Damiki rig. If you're not familiar with it, it's been around for a while, but it really got popular, I think about 3 or 4 years ago. There was a Bassmaster Elite Series tournament, the first one of the year, and it was up in the eastern part of Tennessee, either Lake Cherokee or Lake Douglas, and they were catching fish on these Damiki rigs, pretty much just fishing for suspended fish, dropping it down there to them on the 2D sonar, and you know, just waiting for them to come up there and grab it. But like I said, this is a great little bait. You know, it doesn't have much flash, but it gets down there. It's the perfect size, and you know, you can catch a lot of fish doing that. And I'm throwing this on a spinning rod. It's just easier to drop it down, I think, with the spinning rod. If you were using a heavier jig, like if you were trying to fish over 70 foot of water, you could use a 1/2 ounce or, you know, 3/4, whatever, and you could go up to a casting rod. But I'm just using a little 3/8 and a 3/16, so I don't really use the bait caster much. I just use the spinning rod for that. And another thing you can try is an upsized crappie jig. Technically, I mean, a crappie could still bite that. I call it a crappie jig. You know, it's just a little hair jig, and I believe this is a 1/4 ounce. I can't exactly remember. I'm pretty sure it's either a 1/4 or an 1/8 ounce. But all this is, like I said, just a little hair jig, a little crappie jig. It's got a pink painted head, if you can see that. And it's the same thing. You know, all these techniques you're doing is the same. You're just dropping it down. You're looking on your 2D sonar, trying to see the bait and see the fish streak up and down and show themselves on the depth finder. And then you can drop down, and just depending on how they are and the mood that they're in, you can run through these baits to try to get a bite. So if they don't want the spoon and you're not really getting many bites on that Damiki rig, you can drop this down there. It's the same thing, but it's gonna have a lot different action in the water. It's gonna fall a lot different. You know, it's gonna fall more like this and kind of flutter around. It's not gonna be as a consistent just drop straight down. It's gonna have a lot more of a varied flutter to it compared to the Damiki rig and the spoon. And you know, this is just a great size, you know, especially when it gets super, super cold. That hair jig, it's just barely moving down there, or you know, it can flare out a little bit or come in just the way you move it. Like I said, this is just a great bait, and you can drop this not so much. This is not just for, you know, out in the middle of a pocket or out in the river ledge, or you know, off a point or a drop. You can drop this down beside standing timber. Bridge pilings is a great thing to be fishing this time of the year. A lot of fish might get up around the bridges, and you can drop this down there to them, and you're pretty much fishing it the same way. You know, you're fishing it, once it's down there, you're fishing it vertically like that. You know, you you can pop it back and forth or drop it and bring it back up. You just got to get it down there in the strike zone and figure out the cadence that makes them bite. But you can just drop this down there. If nothing else is working, this is my number 3 that I'll go to. And if I'm around the fish and there's nothing else that they will bite, like if I'm around fish and I know there's fish down there and I cannot get them to bite anything, like I might get a couple touches, but for the most part they do not want to play. That's when you gotta bring out the secret weapon. And some of y'all might laugh at me. This is a 5.5 foot rod. It's an ultra light, and I use this for panfish, trout fishing, just stuff like that. But I also keep it in the bass boat at all times. You never know when you're gonna need it. You never know, you might see some brim on the bed in the summertime. You might wanna try to catch a couple of them. But especially this time of the year, this is what you need to have in your boat at all times. And that's just a little 1/16 ounce jig head with the Bobby Garland, baby shad, magic shad, 2-inch crappie jig. Like this is the crappie fishing staple right here. There's been more crappie caught on that than there's no telling. There's probably been a million crappie caught on this setup right here. And like I said, just a 5.5 foot ultralight rod, 1,000 size reel, just your 10-pound braid to whatever size leader. I've got an 8-pound leader. You could go down to a 6 or a 4. But if you know that there's fish in the area and you cannot get them to touch anything, this can be your last resort go-to. If you drop that down there and can't get a bite, you might as well just go home. I know that's not what you're supposed to tell people, but if you can't get a bite on anything else, this right here will usually get you a bite. You might not catch any giants. You might start catching some crappie, but at least you can drop this thing down there and you should get some touches on it for sure. It's just, these fish get so much pressure now, and they see so many baits, and the shad are really small this time of the year. So they might not want all the flash from a jig and spoon or a Little George. They may not want the Damiki rig, and it might be too big. They might not want the hair jig. So you can drop this down there, and it is a bite-sized bait. Like I said, it's just a little 2-inch bait, and I've got a 1/16 ounce jig head. You can go to a 1/8 or a 3/32 or 1/16, just whatever you like, depending on the depth. But usually the lighter the jig head, the more bites you get. It's just harder to get it down there and get it on the right action. So you kind of have to play around and get the right weight and the trailer and all that right, so you can get the most action out of your bait. But like I said, just if you can't get a bite on anything else and you are around fish, you can just drop that little deal down there, shake it, twitch it, pop it up and down, let it sit there, and them fish will come up and get it, either a crappie or a bass or a hybrid. Something will eat this thing. Obviously, we're trying to target bass here for, my YouTube channel. That's primarily what I'm after, is bass fishing. But I've crappie fished enough with my grandparents, and they've crappie fished for a long time, and they catch just as many crappie as they do spotted bass on the crappie jigs, the minnows, stuff like that. So those spots will eat these little bitty baits. And a big largemouth too. It doesn't have to just be spotted bass. I mean, this could work for smallmouth. This could work for largemouth, spots, just whatever fish you have. If they're set up like this over deep water, it can be a really killer technique. And an honorable mention that I didn't bring out with me is a drop shot. And the drop shot, you can put on a little hand poured, like a robo worm. You can put the tiny fluke on, a little swim bait, just whatever your favorite drop shot trailer is that's a little bit smaller in profile. You can use that, especially if those fish are on the bottom. That's a good bait. Or you can use it like the Damiki rig and fish it for suspended fish, but you're just using a drop shot. Obviously your weight would just be in the middle of the water. Your weight wouldn't be touching the bottom, but you're just dropping your preferred bait down there. Maybe they don't want the shad bait that day. You can drop down a pink robo worm or a green pumpkin, or whatever color you like. You can just try that. But like I said, that that drop shot is my honorable mention. I don't have it out here with me, but you know, you just fish it the same way, just dropping it straight down to them. But I'll run through it one more time. So if I'm going out there fishing, I'm gonna start with the little George, you know, moving that thing around quick, try to get a reaction bite from them. And if I don't have much luck on that, I'll go to the staple, which is just that Damiki rig with the fluke or the tiny fluke on there, your favorite swim bait trailer, just whatever you like to use, just drop that straight down there to him, shake your rod a little bit and hold on. Usually he'll grab it. And if you can't get any luck, don't have any luck on that, or you know, you're getting bites and you just want to switch up and use some different techniques, you can go to that little hair jig, the oversized crappie jig. That's a great one. Like I said, it'll be multi-species, but if you're around the bass, they will definitely hit that little hair jig. And then if push comes to shove, if it's not going good, if you're out there fishing with your kids and they ain't catching anything and they're ready to go, you can break out the old 5.5 foot rod and put that little Bobby Garland magic shad on there, the baby shad, and a little 1/16 ounce jig head. Flutter that thing down there to them. It's kind of slow, but once you get it down there and shake it around for a little bit, one will usually come and get it. So if you can try these 4 things next time you're out there fishing around the shad, you should definitely be able to get a bite on one of these. And on the good days, you can just interchange them. You want to catch one on the spoon, boom, drop it down there. You want to catch one on the hair jig, you can drop that down there. It's just depending on how they're acting and what they're biting, you can kind of run through these and play them and figure out which one they want, which one they don't. But these are 4 staples this time of the year, fishing for deep water, for suspended fish. And like I said, don't forget your drop shot. That's a great bait, and always have that tied on and ready to go. I just didn't have it, I haven't got it tied on yet, so I didn't have it for the video, but like I said, it's definitely an honorable mention, the drop shot. But like I said, I know this is a different video from my channel talking about fishing deep. Y'all might have already clicked off. You're probably thinking, this kid don't know what he's talking about. I've never seen him fish deeper than like 10 foot. So y'all might not want to listen to me, but I promise if you try these 4 baits plus the drop shot, you can definitely get some bites this time of the year. If you can find the bait, you'll find the bass, you'll find the crappie, you'll find the white bass, the hybrids. So just get around the fish and you can try these, dropping down on them, and you should be able to put some fish in the boat. And on the good days, you can put upwards of 50, 60, 70 fish in the boat when they're biting and cooperating the right way. So thank y'all for watching this video, and I'm planning on going to use these techniques this weekend. So I'm gonna have a video out on that, you know, showing you the depth finder, what it looks like, dropping down on them, just stuff like that. So hopefully I can get some proof out for y'all that this stuff actually does work, and I actually did know how to use the depth finder. So y'all be on the lookout for that, and make sure you leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see y'all at the next one. Thanks.